Hello everyone, JohnScript12 back here again with another video, and today I bring you once again another top 5. As you all know, I've been doing tons of top 5s dedicated to my favorite anime of all time, which is Dragon Ball Z. And I decided to do a countdown to end it all with the greatest battles, or the greatest fights rather, in Dragon Ball history. I did my favorite top 5 Dragon Ball Z movie fights, and last week I gave you my top 5 GT fights. So today, as promised, I give you my top 5 Dragon Ball fights. Yes, the battles that started it all. So let's get right down to it. Of course, first off, I have to mention that it is subjective. This is my personal list, and I know there's a lot of die-hard, hardcore, Dragon Ball fans that are dedicated solely to the original sagas that took place prior to the Saiyan saga. But, the battles that I'm going to be putting into question are my favorite, so of course, in the comment section below, give me yours. But let's get right down to it today. So, coming up in number 5 has to go to Goku versus Jackie Chun. This was one of my favorite battles of all time, and I like to consider it the first real fight in Dragon Ball history, because prior to that, Goku never had any real fighting type of style, like he had basic training from Gohan, which definitely gave him an edge in comparison to everything that was happening, and it also helped, with him having a good survival status with, it goes hand in hand when you're a little child living in the woods and stuff, and you have these, in the Dragon Ball universe, giant dinosaurs, or giant creatures, rather. But it wasn't until when he got real, martial arts training from, at that time, the world's strongest person, which of course Master Roshi, disguised as Jackie Chun in the World Tournament, facing off against his greatest pupil. So I don't know. I personally, it's one of those battles that I always loved as a kid. I always thought it was the best fight at that time, and it's always been my favorite because it had good comedic attitude towards it, but it also had the great seriousness of what, battles, that would soon come. It just started it all, because after that you have the real big battles, but before that you only had, Goku facing off against dinosaurs or giant robots and, crazy psychotic samurai ninjas, in the woods and shit, in the Pilaf gang. But it wasn't until this time where he was facing off against a martial arts master, and of course it's Master Roshi disguised as Jackie Chun. And I always liked it because I always thought Jackie Chun, or Master Roshi rather, had a great comedic fighting style that I think just went hand in hand with his character. And plus, I just like how all the twists and turns that happen in the battle itself. You have Goku transforming into an ape, and then you have, Jackie Chun doing a Kamehameha right at the moon, destroying it, and everybody's like, what the fuck's just... I don't know, it's just so many things that happen in this fight that I always loved, and it's just a good comedic, awesome fight. So, I don't know, it just goes hand in hand. Anyways, moving off of that, going to number 4 has to be, for me, Goku versus Tao Pai Pai, or Mercenary Tao, rather, whichever name you want to go by, but Tao Pai Pai, I don't know, I'd like to think of Tao, or Mercenary Tao, as like the very first real villain, I always appreciated Tao, and I always thought he was a great character for Dragon Ball, because at that time you had like these warlords and these crazy psychotic people who wanted to rule the world, but then you have Tao Pai Pai, who's just this psychotic crazy guy straight out of like an old Chinese like kung fu movie. He just resembles everything about what Dragon Ball was. He just looks like he was ripped right out of a kung fu movie. He just looks like that. He has the style, that's like the fighting promise, and the whole character itself just feels like he was ripped from something of that. And I just like his character overall. Like he rode around in trees, like he would just rip off... Who the fuck... Just think of it in those type of terms. He rips off trees, throws them in the air, and flies on them. That in and of itself is just badass. And plus, the battle that happens between him and Goku is just so cool. You have this desperation between the two. And then the ending, I think, was just perfect, where Tao, gets what he deserves, for being such a douche and, killing all these people. which is like getting a bomb like thrown at his face, which I thought was personally really badass. And of course, Tao does come back in later episodes of Dragon Ball as, you know, Mecha Tao, or whatever you want to, you know, go with, and of course seen in Dragon Ball Z years later. But overall, the battle with Goku and Tao Pai Pai, I like it personally because of the events that lead up to it, and of course the aftermath, you know. And I just like, you know, the idea of Tao, you know, putting these people in danger, and like Goku having to deal with it, and like seeing how Goku deals with, you know, immediate danger like that, you know. And I just like it. That's just my personal reasoning. But moving off of that, going to number 3 has to be, I know there's been a lot of Gokus, but what are you going to do? Goku has the best fights. But anyways, Goku versus Tien Shinhan. The first fight, when he was still a kid. I think that, hands down, still holds up as a great battle. You know, and I love Tien. You know, he's one of my favorite DBZ heroes. You know, he's, of course, a part of the Z Warriors. He's an intricate part. Of course, he's kind of, like, laid back, you know, and you don't really see him a lot after the Cell Saga and whatnot. But nonetheless, he's always been one of my favorite characters from Dragon Ball. And I think this is the saga where this particular plot in the story really unfolds into, like, what he's all about and what he truly believes, you know. And they're battled together at the, obviously, once again, at the World Championship tournament. God, it was just so badass. I mean, like, you have so many things going on. Goku's pretty much getting wailed on, and Tien just has so many different cool abilities, and he was just so, like, he was just a good, new, fresh character. And just how the overall battle goes is just badass, you know. And I also like I also really like the fight because it also marks the end of an era and the beginning of a new one for Dragon Ball, the series itself, because it was the last good battle that was lighthearted, you know, because before that you have Goku battling people that he did not want to kill or destroy, and then you had, you know, his martial arts characters that you needed him to fight, you know, like your Krillins, your Yamchas, and Master Roshi and shit. But then you had Tien Shinhan, and then it just ends. It just pretty much ends like that, and that's, I like to think of it as, like, that was pretty much the end of it, because, you know, there's the section where it completely segues right into, you know, the Piccolo arcs, which of course I'll get to later. But I don't know, I always just liked the Tien Shinhan saga and the battle between him and Goku at the World's Championships at that point, because it just marks the end of the old Dragon Ball and the new Dragon Ball, and also marks how, you know, battles will be in the future. You know, it's just the last good, lighthearted, you know, slapstick comedy kind of, you know, fight in Dragon Ball. But moving off of that, segueing into, you know, obviously my 2 favorite of all time battles, and they may seem maybe a little cliche for some people out there, but it has to be the ones I'm about to speak. Number 2 has to go to, obviously, Demon King Piccolo and Goku. Goku, his fight with King Piccolo is just so badass. His arc in and of itself is badass. I mean, like, the first act opens up terribly. It literally opens right after the conclusion of the Tien Shinhan saga, right into his. And it pretty much just ends just with a big, old bloody mess. I just love it. I mean, like, the Nameks in general, I love them. I mean, like, this was, of course, the introduction of Piccolo, one of the greatest characters of all time in the Dragon Ball universe. Just so badass. And plus, I always liked King Piccolo, and I always thought King Piccolo marked the new kind of archetypal, like, villain for Dragon Ball, you know, because he was an alien, but he also was a monster, and of course, at this time, we associate him as a demon, and he was just, overall, just appealing. He just looked cool, he was badass, he wanted the world, you know, and he did things that no other villain could do, which is, of course, take out all the main characters. You know, he killed Krillin, he killed Master Roshi, you know, he pretty much almost killed Goku. You know, it's just, the extent that King Piccolo was about to do, just so crazy. And I just thought it's also kind of ironic and funny that his one wish, once having the Dragon Balls, is to wish back his youth, which is so crazy. I mean, that's just demented as a villain in and of itself, that he's so psychotic. Instead of getting something else, he would ask for his youth of all things. You know, it's just so crazy that he would, you know, put that as his main priority against anything else, you know. But nonetheless, the battle between Goku and King Piccolo is just badass. You know, it just ends just horribly, like, gruesome, you know. You think King Piccolo has the advantage over Goku, seeing as how Goku obviously at this point has no use of his arm, but then shoots out a Kamehameha, and you see there's a split second where, you know, you don't know where this is going to go. You think Goku's going to attack with a Ki Blast, or maybe another Kamehameha, because Piccolo's obviously going to block it, but then shoots right into him, and the first time we get to see the Dragon Fist, bam, right through his freaking stomach. It's just so badass. Just shoots right through him. I mean, like, that alone is just such a badass, iconic moment in Dragon Ball. Piccolo, Goku, fucking shoots right through him. I don't know. Every time I see it, it's just so awesome and iconic of a moment and scene. And plus the battle itself. The fight is just so awesome. But before I get to my number one, let's give out some honorable mentions. Oh, God. Let's see. The rematch. Goku versus Tien Shenhan obviously is pretty badass. Goku versus Krillin is also pretty interesting. Tien versus Jackie Chun, also interesting. Very well done. Really badass too. Yamcha versus Tien, which is also pretty cool. Krillin versus Chaozu, which is cool. I always like that stuff. And also, like, all the various androids and, you know, Goku versus the Red Ribbon Army. All that type of stuff is just so cool. I don't know, there's just so many battles that take place in Dragon Ball. It's hard to, like, place them aside for, you know, the bigger ones, but they're all really fucking awesome. I mean, every time I see Dragon Ball, like, I've been watching a lot of Dragon Ball lately, because every time I, like, research something about Dragon Ball, or if I look up something real quick about that has to do with Dragon Ball, it just makes me want to watch it. So, I don't know. If I suggest anything, you need to check out, you know, everything. You know, just watch it all, because the second you're going to watch this, you're going to want to watch from beginning to end the entire series. So, nonetheless, let's get right down to my number one pick, which has to go to maybe the obvious, maybe the most cliche of all the picks, but it's true and it has to go down to it. Goku versus Piccolo. The most badass, the most iconic, the definitive greatest battle of all time that takes place in Dragon Ball, which is Goku versus Piccolo, or Piccolo Jr., rather, at the time, which was what he was called at the time. Ah, God, that battle just goes on and on and on, and they're just beating the hell out of each other. I mean, Piccolo's doing things that you never seen before. He has these crazy ass abilities. He's increasing his size. You know, throwing out fucking humongous amounts of blasts at Goku, and Goku's just taking it, shooting it right back to him. It's just so amazing. And just at the time you think, there's no way Goku's gonna win, he just beats him. Just the moment where he just shoots out right at him and just hits him with his own head is just so, I don't know, every time I see it, it's just awesome. It just screams epic. I mean, Goku versus King Piccolo was one thing, it was awesome, it was great, but I like to consider, even though that was like the best fight at the time, this one definitely replaces it as the best. It's definitely a good last battle for Dragon Ball, because obviously this was at the end of Dragon Ball's run, you know, until we got into some Dragon Ball Z stuff, into the Saiyan Saga. Overall, this was a good ending for Dragon Ball. You know, it was a good last fight for Dragon Ball, and I think it's definitely one of the best. You know, I mean, Piccolo was always a badass character, and then when he came back as Piccolo Jr., obviously he's already this much of a popular character. He stayed with the Z Warriors, he stayed to the end of Z. Obviously, they did something right to make this character so awesome. And Piccolo, obviously, he's always been one of my favorite characters, along with Goku and Gohan and Vegeta and whatnot. So, I don't know. Personally, it's just the best. You know, when you watch it, you know, it's just the best fight, and it's just so gruesome. The scenes where, you know, you just see how desperate Piccolo is just to kill Goku, and Goku doesn't even want to kill Piccolo. He's just trying to beat him and just prove that he is finally the best fighter in the world, which he eventually does, which is why it's such a great ending to a fight, because You know, it just shows that Goku wasn't interested in killing Piccolo, even though that was his purpose, but lets him go. And just is happy with the fact that he's proved to everyone that he is the world's strongest fighter. And I personally love that moment. I mean, that's a good ending to Dragon Ball overall. Even though there is more filler stuff, it's the best. It's the ending that counts. Anyways, that's pretty much it. That's been my entire list, my top 5 of the greatest battles in Dragon Ball. To recap, obviously, Goku versus Jackie Chan, Tao Pai Pai, Tien Shinhan, King Piccolo, or Demon King Piccolo, and of course Piccolo Jr. Definitely the best fights. If you have not already, check them out again, and of course, just check them out. I mean, they're just awesome fights. And of course, in the comment section below, please give me your list of your top 5 Dragon Ball fights. I know you guys have to have some, because I know, just like DBZ, there's a humongous, hardcore, fan base for specifically Dragon Ball, so everybody loves the early stuff, That's how it is with everything, but, oh, God, that's just a lot of fucking awesome fighting. Anyways, that's going to be it. Next week, I'll come back with you. Well, I'm going to end it all with my top 5 greatest Dragon Ball Z fights. Yes, the best fights in Dragon Ball Z. The fights that started it all, that started the fame, the fortune, everything that makes me like Dragon Ball in general. And of course, all of you guys, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, that's going to be it. Subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already. In the comment section below, tell me what you guys personally thought about this top 5. Give me some top 5 lists of other Dragon Ball Z stuff, personally for you guys. And that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed this top 5, and this has been John Church 12.